Are you ready?
Yes, we are ready.
All right, thank you. Well, welcome everyone to today's best session. This is hosted by the Village of Hanover Parks Economic Development Committee, and today's topic is maximize your one person or small marketing team. My name is Gail Tobin. I'm the branch manager of the Hanover Park branch of the Schaumburg Township District Library. I'm also the chairperson of the Hanover Park Economic Development Committee. And the committee regularly hosts educational and networking opportunities for local businesses and with our regional partners. And today's program is one of those programs, one of those events. This event is brought to you by the Village of Hanover Parks Economic Development Committee in collaboration with the Bartlett Area Chamber of Commerce, the Northwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Poplar Creek Library District, the Schaumburg Township District Library, and the Business Development Center. In this session, Maximize Your One Person or Small Marketing Team, Matt Roberts will discuss how to find your niche, execute automation techniques, and craft a cohesive strategy. You'll be more effective, and your boss will wonder what they ever did without you. Matt Roberts is the Vice President of Marketing and Sales. He served Speak Creative for over 15 years, and he's known as an expert relationship builder, helping organizations across the nation chart a path to reach their digital goals. Matt is based in Memphis and in his free time enjoys serving on the board of Mercy House, an organization that provides rent-free, short-term housing to give stability to residents while they get back on their feet. Matt is also a permanent panelist for the marketing podcast, A Little Off Topic. And at this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Matt. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Well, thank you, everyone, for being a part of the presentation today. Kind of working in a digital agency for 15 years, I've had a pretty up close look at how marketing has evolved over the years. I hear from business owners basically every day that it just feels like too much to keep up with, not enough time, not enough resources. And so that's exactly kind of what we're here to discuss today. How to maximize your effort and effectiveness. And if anything that I share with you today gives you any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. You can see my contact information on the slide. I'd love for you to reach out, even if it's just to talk shop and tactics. I'd love that type of opportunity. So feel free to reach out. Before we kind of get into it, I do just want to kind of give you a little bit of a sense of kind of who we are and who we work with. So Speak Creative is a digital agency with a number of services, and you'll actually see them here in just a minute. But we work with clients kind of all over the country. These are some names and organizations you might recognize, but kind of much more often we're working with local small businesses to help them get traction and improve and multiply their efforts. As far as kind of services that we offer and kind of what our partnerships look like, we really want to be partners with our clients and help them with our online presence from start to finish. So we help them build their brand and supporting systems and get into strategic marketing, which is the area that frankly is kind of the most fun for me and where we're going to spend the most time today. It's putting together the right tactics for an organization to actually see the movement that they're looking for. So that's kind of enough about me and us. Let's kind of get into the meat of the presentation. So just to kind of give you a preview of where we're headed, we're going to talk through kind of the key elements of one person or small marketing teams and kind of what's necessary to succeed in 2021. We're going to kind of lay a groundwork of understanding just to make sure we're all on the same page. And then we're going to dig into what it means to actually start thinking about a strategy, take advantage of tools that are available, and then start to layer all those things on top to say, okay, here's how we can actually make progress this year. All while doing that under the framework of understanding that you don't have unlimited time and resources. So hopefully this is a valuable use of your time. You don't know us and you don't know much about me, but at Speak, we love some gifts. So you'll see those throughout the presentation. Joey Tribbiani wants us to consider a few things before we jump into kind of talk of tactics. So just a few stats to kind of lay that first layer of groundwork for us. 91% of customers have visited a store because of an online experience. So this is from the Small Business Marketing Statistics and Trend Report. So it's from 2021. It's actually was done in January of this year. So it's brand new information. I don't think it's surprising at all to hear that somebody would visit or have an online experience before they go and visit a store. And I suspect with everybody who's attending today, some of you guys are run kind of brick and mortar shops where you're welcoming folks in, and more folks are kind of maybe in the B2B side of things. The stats are basically the same for B2B businesses. I think it's something like 87 or 88%. So just know that our online presence is really important. And when we talk about marketing in 2021, if we're talking about kind of what's most effective and most valuable and kind of where our best first effort is spent, we need to be thinking online because it can make such a big difference for us. All right. Our next stat, 47% of small business owners run marketing entirely on their own. That may strike a nerve with some of you, but we know that nearly half of you are holding the marketing department together with everything else that you're managing. So we want to maximize your time and let you get back to running your everyday, day-to-day business. And 50% of the small businesses spend less than 2 hours per week on marketing efforts. So we know that you don't have a ton of time to spend. We're going to help you figure out how to make those 2 hours the most impactful that they can be for your business. So easy conclusion, just to put in kind of final note here, marketing, especially online, is more important than ever, but businesses are rarely feel equipped with the time or resources to make it happen. So certainly, hopefully I haven't put anybody in like a state of anxiety at this point, but this is just the reality that we're dealing with. So we want to kind of use this context to understand how we can maximize time and resources. So marketing in 2021 can feel like there's no amount of coffee that could ever let you keep up with everything that's going on. But we're going to make it simple. We're going to kind of take inventory of available marketing channels for you to reach your audience and give you some, hopefully, really good tactical steps that you can take to feel like you're making progress even today. So a few key elements of marketing. We're going to kind of take inventory. This is certainly not us saying, here are all the things that you need to keep up with, because even this list is not even close to exhaustive. But this will help us start to narrow our focus, especially for organizations with small teams. So I want to just briefly cover kind of each of these categories. We'll start with online performance because, again, going back to that first stat, 91% of people had an online experience before they got into a store. So your online performance kind of areas where you can make improvement: website, Google My Business. We'll talk more about Google My Business. In fact, it's going to be a pretty heavy hitter throughout the presentation. Your search visibility, so can people actually even have an experience with you? Can they find you? And then analytics to measure how you're performing. Everybody's pretty familiar with traditional marketing, branding and collateral, those cornerstone pieces that help you just make sure that people know who you are, that you've got a message that's getting delivered. TV or ads. This is one of those platforms that, network and broadcast television ads had for a long time been a struggle for small businesses because of their affordability and because of just lack of a targeted nature. But I do want to put a little bit of a kind of seed in your brain that we've got lots of streaming options now, and like Hulu and Spotify both have self-serve ad platforms that small businesses can opt into. And because they're online, because they make up they get lots of audience data, they can help you be really targeted in delivering a message. So it's not kind of the traditional side of ads, but it is something to keep in mind. And then outdoor. So billboards, signs, kind of all the things that we see that help you build up your presence. On the social media side of things, it seems like every day there's some new social platform or some new social trend that's coming out. But kind of the cornerstones for most of the folks that we're working with are Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Facebook.
Matt, can I interrupt just a second?
Sure.
I want to let all of our attendees know that if you have any questions as Matt is presenting, please use the Q&A or the chat option and send us those questions. That way, Matt will be able to answer them towards the end of the presentation. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, perfect. That's great. And I've had a lot of coffee. I did the giant jug right before the meeting. So if I'm going through any of this too fast and you want me to jump back into something, please put that in the appropriate place and we'll discuss it at the end. But getting back into social media, Facebook audience skews slightly older, Instagram audience skews slightly younger. LinkedIn is great for kind of overall business presence and recruiting. And then Twitter is an entity unto its own almost. There are lots of organizations that have made some traction in Twitter and lots of organizations who don't need to pay attention to Twitter at all. We can talk about the nuts and bolts of that. And then lead generation. So what are our tools for getting people to kind of convert? This is a little bit of a cheat because it's kind of more of the online performance, but it just felt nicer to have 4 categories with nicely spaced bullets. But email marketing, content marketing, and remarketing, and we're going to visit those extensively throughout the rest of the presentation. So it's a big, long list. There's lots of things that aren't on this list. Hear me say, this is not one of those things where you have to have some level of activity in every single piece of this puzzle. What we want to do is help you identify areas where you can make strategic progress so that you maximize your time. But this is, again, kind of us laying the table for what's to come. All right, so first of all, we want to know our message. And I know this feels really basic, but there are lots of organizations that I work with who have lots of activity that they're generating in kind of their marketing role or marketing department. But there's not a consistent message. And so the activity is ineffective or inefficient. So let's just take a quick moment to identify what matters with messaging. It's going to make your life easier, not harder. And it's really pretty simple. We want to identify our core audiences. Who can you put together in your mind or even jot it down on a piece of paper, like, who are the 3 or 4 big types of audiences who you engage with on a regular basis? I'm sure you know them off the top of your head, but just think through, okay, who are my core audiences? And then identify channels means of those audiences, where can I find them? Where are they online? Where are they in the community? Where are they going? What are they doing? And between those 2 pieces, find what our VP of Client Services likes to call the red thread. So if we're trying to maximize our time and our resources, we don't have time to develop a specific message for every single audience in every specific channel. If we can start simple and start with a consistent message, the easiest way to do that is to say, okay, what are the commonalities between my audiences and the channels that they're in? It's developing a message that says, of my 4 audiences, they all care about, we have a client that runs a spray tan franchise, which is funny in and of itself. But, their red thread for all their audiences is everybody wants to look good. Everybody cares about the way they look. And so they use that premise as a starting point for all their messaging. They may have each audience has different motivations for why they might want to look good, what stage of life they happen to be in, what stresses they have every day. But the red thread is they all want to look good. And that's where making it simple really matters. Keep it easy on yourself and keep it consistent. And then just reevaluate. So look at your messaging. on a regular basis, every 6 months, every year, say what's working, what am I putting out in the different channels that we're operating in? And, are they connecting to our audiences that we know come and see us? So we'll talk more about kind of the reevaluation here in a bit. But that's, again, broad principle, messaging matters. Then we want to, so we want to know our message, and then we want to use that to begin putting together our strategy, or probably in a lot of your cases, tweaking your strategy. So earlier we kind of took inventory of all the marketing channels available to reach our audiences, but like which ones should you focus on? And it really depends on your goals. If there's no awareness for your brand, if there's no awareness for your brand, then I need to focus on steps to build awareness to get people at the top of the funnel, which is what we got here. Hopefully you guys are familiar with kind of the marketing funnel. And if I have tons of people in my funnel, but there's no conversion, then that's where I need to focus. I need to focus on addressing folks kind of in that specific point in my funnel. That isn't to say that you don't have customers at every point in the funnel all of the time. But knowing your goals will help you narrow your focus and not waste time on things that aren't meeting a specific need. So you'll need to know kind of the intent behind your efforts before you start. So I want to not take it for granted, just briefly, that you know and understand or are comfortable with kind of the idea of the marketing funnel. But it's basically just this philosophy to explain how buyers behave. Generally somebody's going to become aware of us as a company. They're going to become aware of our services. They either have a moment of need or a moment of desire for either a product or service that we offer. And so they begin considering what it would be like to actually engage with us. And then at the point where they actually purchase, make a purchase or transaction with us, that's obviously a conversion point. And then they move into hopefully becoming loyal repeat customers, and then eventually becoming advocates who are willing to not only repeat purchase from us, but start telling all their friends about how awesome they are and how awesome we are and how awesome our product is. None of that happens quickly. Probably the biggest thing that I hear is essentially someone saying, how do I get somebody to become aware of us? How do I move them straight from awareness to purchase? And there's lots of tiny little steps that you need to be willing to engage in to let somebody move through the cycle. There's not a magic bullet to get somebody all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom in one magic step. So we talked about goals a moment ago. And so I find conversations like this to be a little dry and a little bit hard to embrace if I don't actually kind of put it in context of a specific business or type of business. So we're gonna, for the sake of the rest of this conversation, pretend that I'm running marketing for an HVAC company, very compellingly named Acme HVAC. And so you'll see that I've got some goals that I've outlined here on the left. You, of course, will have your own goals. So you need to ask yourself, what actions do I want my audience to take? And then from there, we can determine what elements will most effectively accomplish these goals. So let me just talk through a couple of these. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because we're going to come back to it later. But if one of my primary goals as an HVAC company is to get new customers, that's a multi-layered goal when I look at my funnel. It means that I'm looking at new customers. So there are people who may not even be aware of me yet. So my activity needs to start in the awareness phase. But then I'm wanting them to become customers. So I've got activity to consider in the consideration phase and in the conversion phase. So as I think through putting together a strategy for acquiring new customers, that means that I've got activity in kind of at least three layers of this funnel. Now, when I look at something like system upgrades, so I'm an HVAC company, I know that my highest margin is on somebody buying new equipment and having, my techs come in and install new equipment. But if it's a system upgrade, probably I'm not going to get much of that type of business from somebody who just becomes aware of me. So I'm probably operating in my loyalty and my advocacy layer, and I'm targeting folks who are in those areas to say, hey, you already know us, you already love us. Let's talk about what it would take for you to get a new, a tankless water heater or whatever that might be. So we can kind of go through all the different goals that we've outlined here and kind of mark where they fit in the funnel. But it's important, just as you're doing this on your own, just again, what steps do I want, what actions do I want my audience to take? And then that'll dictate where you can start some of your activity in the funnel. All right, and then we need to know what tools we have available. So we know our message, we know our strategy. Now we need to know what tools we have available. And this is where we can really multiply your time. We can really multiply your efforts, your resources to make this into something that doesn't drag you down. You've got time saved, you've got money saved, you're going to be in good shape. So some things to think through: you need a social scheduling platform. And we'll talk through some platforms that are available out there. You need an email marketing platform. There's some really great ones. There's even free ones out there. And you probably already have some type of customer information system. But we'll talk through kind of some of the tools that are available to help make better sense of customer data so you can make good decisions. So let's jump into each of these kind of one at a time. So the first is social scheduling. So at Speak, we use Sprout Social to schedule content for our agency and for our clients. But there are several different tools out there that will help you schedule social posts. We often kind of hear that scheduling social takes too long, but I promise you, in the long run, the idea of if having a vibrant and active social presence is valuable for you, and pro tip, it is, then you can save tons of time and tons of headache by going ahead and doing your scheduling on a regular cadence. Once a week, once a month, plan out your cadence for the week or the month, and then set a reminder to do the same thing the next week or the next month. Another thing that we hear related to scheduling is that social scheduling kind of quashes creativity. But let me just challenge you to think about kind of off-the-cuff social comments are rarely strategic. They're rarely in pursuit of a specific goal. So by pulling back and saying, let me plan my social posts, what it allows you to do is it allows you to say, okay, what do I want to say? And in light of what I want to say, which audience is it going to? What channel am I using? Am I finding the right mix of message and audience and channel to get the actual message that I want across? Whereas in the moment, those are not necessarily the same thoughts that you're having. And then just another important reminder, posting for the sake of posting decreases engagement. So it's important you're consistent, and a scheduling tool will allow you to be consistent and strategic. I don't know kind of how much you can kind of glean from the screenshot that's included here, but you'll see essentially different types of posts going to different types of channels. So you can say, okay, I want this post to go to Instagram because I know that it's for my younger audience that I'm engaging with. Or I might want this other post to go to LinkedIn because I really need to recruit some new staff. That you can schedule all of those things, and it's okay if you look at kind of the calendar here. It's okay if somebody doesn't see you on Facebook for a week. Make sure you've got the right message in the right place for the coverage that you want to get. And I promise you, it'll all turn into something that creates results. So social scheduling is kind of our first stop. Our next stop is email marketing. This is not in my notes, but I just want to pause and say, email marketing is one of those things that we as marketers, I think, feel a little bit, it's hard to describe the feeling that we have. We know that it's supposed to be effective, but we also know that, like, when we get to our inbox in the morning, in any given morning, you know, we've got 7 or 8 different emails that are all asking for our attention, and rarely do we sit there and think, oh man, I'll open that one. The thing that we see, though, is that email marketing is effective. So don't let that feeling that you personally have when you open your inbox in the morning drive how you think other people will feel, because good email marketing has a great open rate. It gives you in front of, it's the easiest and most consistent way to get you in front of people that you care about being in front of. And it's kind of the thing that lets you be in control of a message that you're sending outbound, and know that there's going to be a pretty high level of engagement right off the bat. So that's email marketing generally, but let's also talk about automation. So if you're not familiar with automation and email kind of drip campaigns, or moving somebody from one email list to another, and kind of automating different behaviors based on how whether someone opens an email or clicks on a link, it can sound really it can sound intimidating, but it's really very easy. Just think about you know, your use case, kind of the life cycle of a customer. And I'm gonna give us some like tactical examples here in a minute when we look back at our funnel. But just for instance, you know, if I'm back in my HVAC company, and on my website, I have a, you know, enter your email address for 10% off your first service with my HVAC company. We've all seen stuff like that, right? It's essentially an excuse for you to get value in exchange for me getting your email address. A lot of people love that stuff. And so what that does is you can then say, okay, well, now I know they're in the awareness phase. They're already aware of me. They've seen my website. They've entered their email. Now they're probably somewhere in the consideration phase. So I start dripping them content, just saying, hey, when it's, you know, it's spring, have you thought about tuning up your air conditioner before before the summer heat kicks in? You know, I can start dropping offers to them. And then as soon as they transact with me, if I set up my automation correctly, then I move them into a customer funnel. And so then my drip campaign becomes maybe educational, how to take care of your equipment, but then also I'm leaning them towards an annual contract. You know, sign up for an annual contract. We'll come out twice a year. You'll get a discount on services. You'll get priority placement. And then I can kind of just move them through the funnel with all these messages. And all I had to do was go through the process of creating that once. I don't have to send those emails ever. Once I've created them and somebody drops into a funnel, all of those things just happen automatically. So with a really well created automation funnel, you have time on the front end that you have to invest, but once it's in place, it's going and you don't have to pay attention to it ever, which is pretty great. In case you guys can't tell, I'm really hyped about email automation. All right, and then third, I apologize. With email marketing, I meant to cover this and I just ran right past it. There are some really great programs that offer, or really great tools that offer really good email marketing. Ones that I'm sure you're familiar with, Constant Contact, MailChimp, Emma. We use a system called Active Campaign, which is really great, which I really like. I believe it's MailChimp that has a free version, I think up to 2,000 people in a list. So if you're not doing email marketing or you want to give it a fresh shot, that might be a good place to start. And it doesn't cost you a thing to try. And they've got some good email marketing and automation tools there.
Hey, Matt, we are getting a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want me to read those out to you, or are you able to see them? Or do you want to take all the questions at the end?
That's a great question. Let me get my Zoom panel pulled up here and see. Oh, there's the chat. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, let's take a pause and address some of these questions real fast. So Jillian Burness, hopefully I got your name all right, right there, Jillian. Any tips on Google Analytics, especially specifically, there used to be a way to see what companies are looking at your website, but they've changed that. And if there's an alternative way to see what companies are looking at your website. Okay, so that's a good question. And it's one that drives marketers crazy. Like, okay, I see that people are on my site. Who is on my site? As far as I remember, as far back as I remember in using Google Analytics, I've never been able to see specifically what companies. They used to do like IP reporting, but that was not ever super accurate. And I think that's why they probably took it away, because folks kind of started trying to act on data that was not that concrete to begin with.
Matt, can just so others who are part of the, who are listening and understand what the question was, if you are not able to see the chat, is that the question is that typically businesses are able to use a tool to find out who is looking at their website. And the question is, are there tools to do that better? Are you able to still get that? Is that right, Matt?
A little bit. I would challenge the premise that there are tools that let you see who's on your website. And that's kind of where I was getting at. When Google first released the tool, they were trying to help people see that, but it was just wildly inaccurate because it was IP address based. And so many of us are on shared IP addresses. There's lots of technical kind of background to that specific question. The short answer is, especially today, marketers need to be moving to a place where they are seeking permission to know who's engaging with them. And that's rather than trying to develop tools to investigate who someone is without them opting into that information being passed along. It's a delicate balance, because once we get somebody's information, we can do lots of stuff with it. But we always want to start with the idea of asking for someone's permission to use their data. That just keeps us in good kind of white hat territory with marketing tactics. So to answer your question, there's not a tool out there that I would recommend that lets you kind of suss out who someone is based on their behavior. Now, that said, if we can get somebody to give us their information, like their email address, there are some really great tools like HubSpot. It does this, and so does ActiveCampaign, where once somebody does kind of associate themselves to our website, they'll give you tools to let you say, oh, okay, well, Matt was on my website yesterday. He came back today. And then when I come back next week, it'll say, oh, Matt spent another 5 minutes on my website. But again, it starts with that kind of opting into sharing some information. And that's where having those offers, whether it's, a percentage discount or just good thought leadership, can give somebody the incentive to share their information with you. And then once they've done that, you can do lots of really great stuff with that. So I would say to kind of put a pin in the conversation or a final point on the conversation, something like HubSpot or ActiveCampaign or any kind of comprehensive marketing tool like that will let you surface those types of behaviors. The downside is usually they're pretty expensive. So you've got to be able to kind of say, okay, is it worth the investment? You can do lots of stuff without having to get that level of sophisticated, if that makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to get through these other two questions and then we'll keep moving. So when you say email automation, do you mean obtaining the emails once and then the regular push out of messaging through something like Sprout Social? Yes and no. So the way typically that we see that done is somebody does share their email once, and they would go into a program like Emma or MailChimp or Constant Contact or ActiveCampaign or kind of any of the other email programs that are out there. And you would either decide to do push-based emails where you say, hey, I've got a new message that I want to get out to either my big entire list or some segment of my list. And if IMapped have given you my email address, you have the ability to send me that email. The other way to do it, or in combination with that strategy, you could do automation, which is what I was talking about earlier, where you assume kind of a level of kind of someone's level in the funnel, and you use automation to kind of send them emails through something like, again, Constant Contact, Emma, MailChimp, based on where they are and how they're in their behavior. And you can even set up behaviors that says, okay, if they open this email, do this, send them a second email. If they didn't open the first email, send them essentially a reconfigured email of the first one with a different subject line, hoping that they'll get. And so you can build some branching behaviors there that get really good results. And then Minerva just asked, can you please repeat the email marketing tools? I've said them a few times now, but just for the sake of repeating them again, MailChimp, Emma, Constant Contact, and ActiveCampaign are the ones that we see used most frequently. All right, so that catches us up with questions. Anything else we need to jump on before we keep going?
Oh, go ahead.
All right, cool. All right, so our last bit is CRM integration. And this is really where kind of sales and marketing mesh. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because CRMs are kind of so particular to different types of organizations. But what I want to do is just maybe uplift the value of any CRM you are using to say it's a great place for you to centralize contact information for everybody you do business with. QuickBooks is not a CRM. We work with a lot of small businesses where they're keeping up with contact information in QuickBooks. And if that's the place you have to start, I totally understand. But there's like HubSpot offers a free CRM. And it just lets you get to customer information at a deeper level and with much more sophistication than something like accounting software, for instance, or point of sale system software. So get a CRM. HubSpot, like I said, is free. There's other CRMs that are out there. CRM, by the way, stands for Customer Relationship Management. I don't want to take that for granted. Salesforce is a really great one. It's more expensive, but it has they usually have some small business offers that can make it more kind of worth the investment. But they allow you to do more with data. So I can say, okay, show me all of my customers who live in this particular suburb, or show me everybody who lives in this zip code, or show me everybody who spent money with me in 2019, but not 2020. And then I can decide what to do with that data. It lets you get at, again, it moves us from kind of reactionary strategies to saying, okay, here's a segment of my audience that I really want to have pay attention to a particular message. So again, when we talk about trying to maximize your time, part of that is just ensuring that you feel like you've got everything that you're doing is effective and is as targeted as possible. I'm not just spraying out one email to my entire list and hoping that it gets results. I can spend a few more minutes to say, okay, people in this area might like to hear this version of my message, and people in this area might like to hear this version of my message. And I can decide kind of who goes where based on a CRM that lets me see data in that way. So CRMs are great. If you don't have one, I would highly recommend HubSpot. We used it for years and years. It's free. It's a great place to start. We currently use a system called Copper, which is really tightly integrated with like Google. So your Google email, your Google Calendar, kind of all that is tied in, and it lets you just kind of flow in conversations. But get started somewhere. CRMs are fantastic. All right. So we know our message, we know our strategy, we know our tools. The last thing we need to know is just know when to ask for help. There's this idea of, and I see the question, Minerva, I'll get to it here in just a second. In fact, it's a great place for us to stop before we get into the next slide. The opportunity to bring somebody else in to help just lets you multiply your effort. So, and it could be, you're bringing on a short-term contractor. It could be that you're bringing on an agency like us. It could be that you're bringing on a part-time employee to just make your efforts more sustainable. But essentially, do you find yourself maxed out on time? And even if, kind of working through all the tips of scheduling and automation that you just, you either reach the limits of your knowledge or you just don't have time to kind of see everything through. You might find yourself in that category, or you might find yourself in the second category of just, do you feel stuck? Like you've been doing the same thing and you just know that there's a next level that you can take, but you need somebody with fresh eyes to just help you get traction. Those are just good questions to constantly ask yourself. The answer isn't always, let me spend money on bringing somebody else in. Sometimes I just need somebody who's a part of the operation to come and lay fresh eyes on it. But just know when it's time to just ask for an outside opinion or ask for outside help. And the biggest, maybe the biggest thing that stops us asking for help is just that we know a lot of times it costs something. And so that's really where kind of turning our mindset to the idea of an investment versus cost can make a difference. The example I always like to use is I was talking with an architecture office here in town a couple of years ago about doing a website design. And I don't remember the specific number, but the website was more than what they wanted to spend. It felt like a really high cost to them. And just in the moment, I just said, hey, totally get that. Let's see what we can work out. But how many new clients would the website need to bring you for it to pay for itself? And this particular architect works on kind of pretty big projects. They're pretty well known for big builds. And the two principals that were in the meeting kind of looked at each other and were like, one? And suddenly the conversation became, I didn't even have to say anything. They just were like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. Like if we can get one new client off of this effort, it's more than paid for itself. And we know that this is a thing that'll last, 3 or 4 years. And so we're going to get more than one new client just off of this thing helping us be more effective. So just think in terms of investment. That's generally a good principle, just running a business. All right, before I move on to our last kind of tactical slide, I want to address Minerva's question, which says, can you use a CRM for your KPIs? KPIs are key performance indicators. And they're essentially how you measure your success or progress against goals that you set. You certainly can. CRMs generally make themselves extremely configurable. And what we do internally is there's a system out there. I know I've talked about a lot of systems already, but there's a system out there called Zapier. If you're not familiar with Zapier, it's essentially just a way to get different systems to talk to each other. And so what we do is when someone, well, not to get too far into our flow of things, but essentially when somebody is invoiced, our accounting software, we have a Zap that moves information from our accounting software into our CRM to show progress against either like in that instance, it might be a revenue goal related to a specific type of industry or a specific geography that we've identified as a KPI. So there are things that you can do because they're so highly configurable. It does require usually some legwork and some systems talking to each other. If that's something that you're interested in, like talking about specifically Minerva, I'd love for you to email me because we can talk through like a specific use case. Okay, so good cue from the attendees. I know we need agency help, but what service would have the most impact for my business? And this actually leads us, is a perfect question to lead us into our last slide. And I want to be respectful with everybody's time, so I'm not going to hopefully belabor the point too much. But I want to bring us back in front of our funnel. And this is about to get a little bit messy looking because there's going to be lots of stuff layered on the funnel. But the end goal is to give you hopefully just some action points to say, okay, here are some things I can do today or start doing today. And then here are some things that maybe I need to say, okay, this is one or two items that are really important for me. And this is where I could use some outside help. So let's look at kind of the constellation of tactics that we can use to get somebody into our funnel and then moving down through our funnel. And I'm going to kind of load these in one at a time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time dissecting them. Oh, I think I am. There we go. All right. So first, ads. Ads are a great way to build awareness, whether it's through traditional media or through streaming or wherever. It's a great place to get for folks to see you for the first time. Claim and update your Google My Business. This will be a thing that gets circled here in a minute as something you can and should do today. Like this is, if you haven't done this already, claim and update your Google My Business. It is like, it is fundamental. It is a great place to start. It's an easy place to start. I keep losing my scroll. There we go. Create better search visibility. So can people find me online? If they're searching for an HVAC company in Memphis, can they find my business? Can I improve my social presences? Maybe I haven't paid attention to my Facebook page in 10 years. Now's the time to say, okay, I need some better awareness. If that's where you are, that's a good place to start. And then moving down to consideration. Maybe I start a remarketing campaign, or I'll respond to reviews online about my business. You should do this. We'll talk more about it in a minute. I could create an incentive-based email drive and create a campaign off of it. We talked about it a minute ago. If somebody's in the consideration phase and I say, hey, if you want 10% off your first service, that's a great way for me to get their email. It's also a great way for me to make sure that, hey, I know they're in a buying mood or could be soon. So let me go ahead and get their email and start, sending some content their way. At the conversion point, again, we can use email offers to move somebody through to conversion. It's also usually the conversion is kind of your most kind of face-to-face enmeshment with your business. So marketing can help, collateral can help here. But that's, I won't spend a ton of time kind of in the conversion phase. Building loyalty. So again, going back to my HVAC example, my techs might have brochures that they leave behind with a customer telling them, hey, we've got this great loyalty program. You sign up for a year's worth of service, you get a discount. We come out twice a year proactively. That's just a really great piece of collateral to know that they've got. I could send a satisfaction survey. So after a transaction has taken place, hey, did you have a good experience with your tech today? Did we do everything we promised to do? On a scale of, 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer us to friends and family? If somebody answers a 9 or 10, it's really easy to build a little automation that says, okay, if they did that, then ask them, hey, thank you so much for being such a big fan. Would you mind giving us a review on Google? So you just kick them right over to the link to your Google My Business. They write a quick review, and you can even send a thank you that says, hey, thanks for the review. But what it's doing is it's helping create kind of this virtuous cycle of customer feedback, especially when we're talking about service-oriented businesses. Google My Business is just it can move mountains when we talk about somebody making progress with their goals. It can also stop somebody dead in their tracks if they're not paying attention to it, because a couple of bad reviews that are left uncommented on by the business I mean, that people are going and they want to feel confident about the business that they're working with. All right, and then we're almost done. Creating loyalty. One thing that I love that we have a lot of our clients do and that we do ourselves is just a handwritten note from somebody in charge that just says, hey, thank you for your business. That's not something you can do for everybody, but if you can pick out a handful of people to do that every day, that makes a really big difference. And then as far as creating advocacy, this begins to edge into just people's personalities and are they kind of naturally cheerleaders? But if we want to kind of create that type of behavior, that we can do like referral offers. We can also do what one of our clients, we work with Hilton here in town. They talk about surprising and delighting guests. And I've always loved that phrase. But you can do a surprise and delight package. Pick your best customer, the one who's your biggest cheerleader, and, spend $30 or $40 and send them something in the mail completely unasked for, and make them into just a champion for your business that's never going anywhere. They'll refer you to everybody that they know. So there are lots and lots of different tactics. This is not even close to a comprehensive look of how we can move somebody through the funnel. The idea here is probably you already have some of these things going on, or at least they're in your mind as things that you want to do. The biggest thing is maybe pick one or two that would help you make progress today. So, and I've circled them in blue. Maybe it's just starting, saying, hey, I'm going to carve out 30 minutes a day to respond to reviews on Google. That might be thanking someone for a positive review. Even more importantly, it's having an empathetic response to somebody who had a bad experience. So if you've got a bad review, don't let it discourage you. Use it as an opportunity for you to get your message across to anybody else who happens to see that review. I'm so sorry that you had a bad experience. Could one of our customer service technicians call you and talk to you about your experience so we can improve in the future? Maybe that person goes back and adjusts their review. But if nothing else, you as the brand have now responded in a way that I think we all would want somebody to respond if we had a complaint. So maybe you're going to carve out 30 minutes a day to start doing that. And that's easy. You can do that today. That doesn't require anything other than just blocking off time to do it. Or maybe you're just going to start carving out time to do some handwritten notes. Like, those are easy takeaways of things that you're maybe not already doing, but it would help address some areas of the funnel that you're not addressing in some really easy, simple ways. And then as far as calling in help, maybe you don't have the time or expertise to create search visibility. It's one of those things that is a little bit difficult. It requires somebody with a high degree of knowledge and somebody who's super tuned in to where things are right now with Google, and they'll change in a week. And so you want them to be on top of it then too. So that's a great place when we talk about, kind of the question from the attendee of I know we need an agency help, but kind of what services are most impactful. If your challenge is awareness, then that's a really great place to bring in some agency help. If you're widely known, then maybe that's not a place you worry about. Maybe you need some help kind of moving folks from kind of awareness down into the conversion. They're in that consideration phase, but they're just stuck there. Maybe you need an agency just to help you get an automated campaign set up to help you make some progress there. Or maybe you just need to call a freelancer and ask them to help you knock out a leave behind brochure so that you can move people not just from this transaction, but into kind of partnership and loyalty. Those types of things can help you create movement. So I guess just coming back to the question, really where you need to, when we talk about where you might need outside help and services that are right for you, it really comes down to kind of what phase of the funnel do you feel like you've got some unmet need, and do you have the capacity and the time to kind of create some tactics to address that particular layer of the funnel, or would it just be helpful to bring somebody else in? So that's hopefully helpful. This as we look at kind of all the different tactics on this funnel, you know, a lot of these elements can be scheduled, they can be structured. It's a set it and forget it type of involvement. They don't require, you know, constant hand holding, and you can set aside some time for the things that do require some hand holding. Just developing the discipline of setting aside some time to go out and once a week, you know, just take a look at Google. Maybe you don't have any new reviews this week. There's nothing for you to do, but it's just a checkbox that you look at and say, okay, I got that done. I'll look again next week. So it's just thinking through the activity that you can plan out and schedule yourself to make progress in different parts of your funnel. So that's really kind of the idea here. And hopefully that's giving you guys some good tactics and information on how you can maximize your smaller marketing team. So thank you all for letting me get through the content. If you have any additional questions, I guess now would be a good time to drop those in.
Yeah, no, this was really helpful. Thank you so much, Matt. I know we are almost at the tail end of our hour, and being respectful of everybody's time, I want to take just a minute or so, first of all, to thank Matt. This was a very informative presentation and fun. Really enjoyed some of the slides. They were easy to understand and follow along. And thank you to all of our attendees as well for taking the time. I hope you found this informative. What I really liked in this presentation was, Matt, you outlining specifically, here are the tools, these are the names of the tools that you can use for the various stages of marketing. And it sounds like many of these are free as well. So when we have our small businesses that don't have a huge marketing team, the financial burden is certainly one of the reasons. And to find out that there are many of these tools, where, you know, at each step of that funnel, that can be helpful is really good. I want to take a quick minute and let our attendees know that we also have, this is part of our BEST series, which is Business Education Seminars on Technology. And this is something that our Economic Development Committee puts together along with our business partners and the chambers and the WBDC, et cetera. And of course, our department, the Economic Development Community and Economic Development for the Village of Hanover Park. We do have a series of these coming up. So I want to put a quick plug in for those. To mark your calendars, June 8th is our next one. And that is on the 10 best social media practices for 2021. That's June 8th, again at 10:30. September 14th is how to boost your Google and Yelp reviews. And then December 14th would be rebooting your business after the unexpected setback that we had last year. So once again, the upcoming dates are June 8th, September 14th, and December 14th. Stay tuned. You can go to the village's website, hbil.org, under the business tab and find a lot of these resources. And please feel free to contact us, send us your questions, and we will try to get responses back to you as much as, once again, thank you so much, Matt, Gail, and Nan. Thank you for the chamber to find Matt and inviting him to make the presentation.
Yes, thank you all for your time today.